ECS has so many excellent resources that are published each year. We actually just did a paper this past year that was on the funding for early learning across the states. In fact, in his State of the Union address, President Obama cited a statistic from our ECS report telling the country that of the 40 states that fund pre-K programs, 30 of them increased funding for these programs in the 2013 to 2014 school year. You can find that resource on our website along with many of our other reports. A couple housekeeping items. One, I want to remind everyone to please fill out your evaluation form. The speakers we have, the issues we've tackled, the research we've done in this past year all come from the evaluation forms that you fill out at our national forum and the insight that you provide us when you connect with our office. The evaluation forms are salmon colored. I only had 8 crayons in my box, so I'm not sure what the salmon is, but salmon colored paper, which are in your registration packets or can be picked up at the registration desk. So please do fill those out for us, and if you have to depart early, grab one and send it back to us. I'm now honored to introduce our 4th and final Ed speech. Jeff Charbonneau is a teacher from Zillah High School in Washington State and spent the last year serving as the 2013 National Teacher of the Year. We've had the honor of having Jeff serve as part of our panel at last year's forum, and I can tell you that Jeff has truly embraced his role as an ambassador of education. Being one who travels somewhere almost every week myself, I want to be sure to acknowledge that Jeff has traveled all over the country this past year. Jeff has over 400,000 frequent flyer miles since he started in his job, further validating his commitment to promoting the importance of education and the impact that policy can have on student outcomes. I also want to give a quick shout out to Jeff, who flew to DC to run our orientation program for this year's Teachers of the Year on Monday, went to Atlanta yesterday to give a keynote speech to the ISTE conference, and flew back late last night so he could be here with us again. So without further ado, I'm honored to introduce a great friend of ECS and a national supporter of education. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Charbonneau to talk about his experience the last year.
You're right, 400,000 frequent flyer miles. So people ask me, so what have you been doing this last year? I sit a lot. I sit in airplanes an awful lot. I was asked to, so can you share what you've learned in the past year? I really got to take it a little bit farther back than that. This whole process started for me almost 2 years ago now. 2 years ago this summer, I was the Zillah School District Teacher of the Year, and I was really happy for, the 3,000 people in my community, and I thought I had really made it, and that was where things were going to be. But I was actually a really resistant Teacher of the Year. And that's something that we have to understand as policymakers, as something we have to understand as educational institutions, is that many of our teachers are resistant Teachers of the Year. You see, in the Zillah School District, the way we do it is there are nominations that are put in by parents, there's nominations that are put in by staff members, maybe administrators, and they all get read then by the superintendent of schools and the union co-presidents. I happen to be a union co-president in my district. I took my name out of the hat 7 years in a row. I got nominated 7 years in a row, and I said, I don't need this, I don't want it. It's all about the kids, it's not about me. That's what teachers are taught. That's what we are bred to understand. We are taught to not brag about ourselves. We are taught to brag about our students and the work that they do, and to not take responsibility for what the kids have done. It's their work. So when it came time to become the district teacher of the year, the superintendent suddenly stopped returning my phone calls. I kept calling him and trying to say, hey, when are we going to pick this person? When are we going to pick this person? And the guy went behind my back. And he sent out an email to the rest of the staff saying that I had been turning this thing down. So finally I called him up, got him on the phone, and I said, when are we going to pick the Teacher of the Year? And he goes, Charbonneau, you idiot, it's you. Well, thanks. I had no idea. I knew there was a National Teacher of the Year, but I had no idea how you got to that process. I had no idea what it meant to be a teacher advocate because I had never been trained to be a teacher advocate. I'd never been shown what that was like. I was always shown what it was like to be humble, to be in the background, and to put my students first. And that is important, don't get me wrong. But what would happen if we changed our system just a little bit and allowed our teachers to be proud of themselves? What would happen if we allowed and taught our teachers to be proud and share their knowledge? suddenly the conversation changes, doesn't it? The last couple of days, you've had the opportunity to learn from some of the 2014 State Teachers of the Year. They're an amazing group of people, aren't they? Maybe a little shout out, a little round of applause for them. Wow. These are good folks that have such significant content knowledge, such ability to comprehend not only their subjects, but the subjects of all teachers in their state, and to communicate that effectively. What if we were to expand programs like that? What if we were to invest back in the Teacher of the Year programs within our states and the National Teacher of the Year program? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm done. I don't get any more money out of this thing, so I'm not asking for that. But what I'm asking for you to do is to continue to invest in the State Teacher of the Year program and in the National Teacher of the Year program so that teachers understand what it's like to become teacher advocates. And as you do that, you got to think about some things. I learned a lot this year. I learned a lot. I learned the power of your words. I learned the power of words. Now, my son is 7, my daughter is 4. I focus a lot on use your words, honey. Use your words. We need to think about using our words, too. Let's think about things like teacher evaluation. I was just having a great conversation just the other day with one of our 2014 Teachers of the Year, Gary Abud. He's in here somewhere. Gary is from the great state of Michigan. I was having this conversation with him, and I said, it's important that we understand the value of words. And he turns to me and he says, you're right. We talk about teacher evaluation, and when we do that, it's personal to the teacher. I am evaluating you as a person when I say teacher evaluation. But what if we called it teaching evaluations? An evaluation of your teaching, not of the teacher, but of your teaching. Wow, what power could that have? You turn your teachers like that, suddenly they understand the power of the words. You're not evaluating me as a person, you're evaluating my teaching ability. It's such a simple change, isn't it? Such a simple change. I've learned so much this year, it's unbelievable. I'm a chemistry and a physics teacher. I teach about quantum mechanics. I teach about Schrodinger's paradox. Either the cat is both dead or alive in the box. And I thought that was just a thought experiment until I got a little bit further into Common Core. Do you know that Common Core is both going to save the world and destroy it? At the same time. I know this because I read the comments sections. Man, it's amazing, isn't it? Common Core is going to both save the world and destroy it at the same time. How can that message possibly be out there? We need to think about our messaging. We need to think about how we use our words. People come up to me, you know how many times I was asked about the Common Core this year? Only every hour. Only every hour. National Teacher of the Year, what do you think about Common Core? And we can go into that discussion, but the first thing I say is, well, you got to stop, because I got to understand what you're actually asking me. Are you asking me about the Common Core state standards? Or are you asking me about curriculum that is designed to address those standards? Or are you asking me about the assessments that are designed to test the curriculum that were set up for the standards? Or are you asking me about what we do with those assessments? Because those are 4 separate issues, aren't they? It's totally possible to have one and do something different with the second, and do something different with the third, and something different with the fourth. We have to understand the value of our words and the way that we communicate. So what if we started giving people the opportunity to have those types of discussions? What if we started focusing in a little bit more on the specific issues that are there? We had some great conversations this morning, obviously about the pre-kinder experience, about early childhood education. I haven't run into a single person yet that doesn't want early childhood education. I haven't seen anybody advocate for that. But what I have seen is people advocating for status quo, or people advocating for something else, and they do it under some strange auspices. I learned this year that we're stuck in education. And we're not going to get out of this rut that we are in because of 2 things. 1, we have to have a crisis. We have to have a crisis because if we don't have a crisis, we won't get funded. I'm serious. I was on stage in front of 1,000 people in one of my local areas. I had some state senators standing behind me. State senators that I highly respect and I even vote for. They're in my district. And I went out there and I talked about how the Zillah School District is the 10th lowest funded district in the state of Washington in terms of per pupil funding. 296 districts in the state. Rank them by the amount of money they receive per kid. Zillah's 10th from the bottom. We be poor. That's just the way it is. And I said, but you know what? We have a 96.8% graduation rate. And it's been above 95% for the last 7 years in a row. And while I'm on stage giving that exact address, the representative sits here and says, see, you don't need any more money. If I sat in a different chair and I sat over here instead, and this was a business person, they would say, yes, that's what I want to invest in. There's a difference. In education policy, we have to have a crisis in order to be funded. But the problem with that is when you have a crisis, you're talking negatively about education, and businesses do not invest in negativity. They don't. They close down operations that are not successful. They close the business, they fold it, or they acquire it by something else. Businesses don't communicate that way. So when we talk about crises in education so that we can get funded by our legislation, so that we can get funded by our governments, we are doing a disservice and we are telling the businesses that we are failing. But if I come over to the other side and I talk about the positives in education and I tell you how you should invest in it because things are going great, I got the businesses on my side now and I've got the policymakers saying, see, you don't need our help anymore. When are we going to change that? When are we going to change that conversation? I love the word this morning, having the opportunity to invest in early childhood education. What if we required from here on out that every time an agency in your state came to you and asked for money in education, that you required them to use the words investment and return on investment? What if you required that? What if you required that every time that they came to you, you made them say what was going right in their schools or what was going right in their programs and why this was a wise and proper investment? Two things will happen. One, you get businesses on your side. Suddenly they're talking the same language as you are. And two, we start thinking a little bit more positively about our education. You know, I'll tell you what. I've been married now, in August anyway, it'll be for 14 years. And I don't know how far I would get if when I came home I said, honey, you really need to reform. Honey, we got a crisis here, and I just think we need to increase your effectiveness. Honey, I have evaluated you, and I just, I'm sorry, you're getting an F. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I'm telling this to you so that you know, so that you can improve. Right? I'm telling you this because I love you and I want you to get better. Now you understand why I've been on the road all year. The power of our words. That's what I learned this year. The power in the way that we say things. From teacher evaluation to teaching evaluation. The way that we talk about our students. Are our students an entity that will stay in our classrooms forever? Are they this thing that is to be shaped and to be molded? Or are they the future us? You see, that's what we're really doing. What we really do in education is create the next generation of us. Look around this room right now. Some of you are old enough, and I'll say experienced enough, to look around the room and go, wow, you're younger than my son. Wow, you're younger than my daughter. Some of that's happening in this room right now, right? Think about that. These were students at one point in time. They were kids. We were kids, every single one of us, and we became the new us. We have to refocus our language. We have to refocus the way that we talk about the new us so that when they grow up, they are proud of who they have become. And they suddenly become our teachers. And they become our instigators of change. So here's your homework. If I have one lasting thing that I can say to the Education Commission of the states, to the people that I so respect because you take, honestly, way more blame than you deserve. It's incredibly true. Teachers, I'm actually pretty well respected by the parents of the kids that I teach. Lawmakers, you are well, I don't know. You should be more respected for the work that you do, right? You give of your time and you give of your family and you give so much to us in service. But if I did have one piece of homework for you to do today, it's simply this. How are you going to change your words? How are you going to change your words to lift up teacher motivation, to lift up parent motivation, to lift up business motivation? If you can do that, and do that effectively, do me a big favor. Shoot an email to Jeremy and have him send it out to everybody else. Thank you so very much for allowing me to be a part of not only this conference, but last year's conference and the ongoing discussions in education. Thank you so very much. Thank you.